Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, if you live in a city, you definitely know the feeling of that dreaded 3 p.m. brain fog. The honking cars, the towering concrete, the endless notifications. It's basically a recipe for mental exhaustion. Today, we're diving into a really pressing issue. How exactly do we find cognitive restoration within the relentless stress of a concrete jungle?
For a long time, it kind of felt like the only way to truly reset was to pack a bag, leave the city entirely, and just isolate yourself in some remote cabin in the woods. But let's be real, for most of us, that's just not a practical daily reality. And look, this is a problem of massive scale. By the year 2050, a staggering 68% of the global population is projected to live in urban areas. If we don't figure out how to weave psychological recovery into the very fabric of our cities, we are looking at a global epidemic of cognitive burnout driven by what scientists call a restorative deficit.
Think about urban architecture for a second. The sharp grid of streets, the flashing billboards, the complex intersections. It demands forced, directed focus just to navigate safely. And that drains our brains incredibly fast. This brings us to a foundational concept in environmental psychology, attention restoration theory, or ART. The theory proposes that natural environments engage our attention in a completely different way. Instead of forced, directed focus, nature triggers something called soft fascination. Think of watching leaves flutter in the wind or listening to a bubbling stream. It captures your attention effortlessly, allowing those directed attention centers of your brain to finally power down and recover from the sensory overload of city living.
A brand new 2026 PLOS ONE study by researchers Hu, Sidhu, and Tan brilliantly illustrates a massive blind spot in environmental psychology. You see, almost all past research on environmental restoration was conducted in temperate climates. Think Northern Europe or North America. It also mostly relied on extreme comparisons, a pristine, pure pine forest versus a completely gray, pure concrete street. But that's not reality. This new study shifts the focus entirely to tropical climates and tests the realistic, mixed urban nature spaces that we actually live and work in. So, why does the climate actually matter? Well, tropical ecosystems like the ones in Malaysia where this study was conducted are fundamentally different from temperate ones. They have year-round high temperatures and heavy humidity. The vegetation is incredibly dense, evergreen, and, frankly, visually chaotic. Plus, the soundscape is totally distinct. It's dominated by loud insects, diverse birdsong, and heavy tropical rain. The researchers asked a really crucial question here. Do the restorative frameworks developed in quiet, orderly European parks actually apply to the intense sensory experience of the tropics? Okay, let's dive right into this. To figure out how our brains actually respond to these different environments, the researchers set up a fascinating and rigorous laboratory methodology. They recruited 87 participants and exposed them to a library of 120 different environmental stimuli. They built a brilliant 3x3 testing framework, testing pure nature, mixed urban nature, and pure urban environments. And they tested them across 3 sensory modalities: visual only, audio only, and bimodal, which is both audio and visual together. So someone might just see a tree-lined street without sound, while another participant might just hear the traffic and birds from that same street without actually seeing it. After being exposed to a scene, participants went through exact steps to measure their psychological response. Step 1, they rated how natural the environment felt on a 0 to 10 scale. Step 2, they evaluated its perceived restorativeness using 5 specific criteria based on attention restoration theory. Things like how much fascination it sparked, the feeling of being away from stress, and the overall visual coherence of the scene. Going into the data, the baseline expectation was that pristine nature would be the undisputed champion of cognitive rest. But the visual-only results reveal a massive plot twist. The data shows that pure, wild nature was actually not rated the most restorative. Instead, the mixed urban nature scenes, like tree-lined streets and structured urban parks, scored significantly higher for visual restoration than the untamed tropical forests. I know, that sounds completely counterintuitive at first, but here is why it actually makes perfect neurological sense in a tropical context. As the study notes, dense vegetation may present high visual complexity without sufficient structural organization, increasing cognitive load. Essentially, a pure tropical jungle is visually chaotic. Your brain has to work really hard to process all those overlapping leaves and deep shadows. But a tree-lined street? It offers comfortable visual coherence. The straight lines of the built environment provide a structure that organizes the greenery, making it much easier and far more relaxing for your eyes to process. Now, when we turn off the visuals and just listen, the results shift. Here, both pure nature sounds and mixed urban nature soundscapes scored equally well in promoting psychological restoration. The sounds of water and birds effectively masked the urban noise, providing deep mental recovery even without seeing a single leaf.
So the crucial point is what happens when you combine them. You'd logically think that looking at a forest while listening to a forest, the bimodal presentation, would be the ultimate cognitive spa treatment. But the study found it offered absolutely no additional restorative benefit over just a single high-quality sensory input. Adding birdsong to a visual nature scene didn't significantly increase restoration beyond just looking at the view or just hearing the sounds. Your brain essentially hits a restoration ceiling with just one rich sensory channel.
This data is incredibly empowering, especially for anyone dealing with land scarcity in a dense metropolis. We can't all have a giant pristine forest in our backyard. But these findings give urban dwellers and city planners a highly practical, evidence-based roadmap for mental recovery. Let's summarize the practical takeaways here. First, small pockets of urban nature, like a rooftop garden or a street with mature trees, can actually outperform wild forests for visual rest because they offer structured, organized greenery. Second, intentional design is absolutely everything. Balancing concrete geometry with nature lowers our cognitive load. Third, if you're stuck in a windowless office, you don't even need a view. High-quality nature sounds played through your headphones can entirely substitute for green views when access is limited. And finally, perceived naturalness is what truly matters. If it feels natural to you, your brain is going to recover.
You really don't have to escape the city to escape cognitive fatigue. You just have to be intentional about what you let into your eyes and your ears. So, based on this science, I want to leave you with this. How are you going to actively redesign your own urban sensory experience today to find your cognitive calm? Whether it's seeking out a structured pocket park on your lunch break or just putting on a high-fidelity rain soundtrack at your desk, the tools for restoration are right in front of you.